Hi, good morning, and welcome to the ZP FoodSense webinar. So we do this webinar once a month, really as kind of commitment to the product and commitment to our clients. So rain or sunshine or rain, we go ahead with this anyway. So let me jump straight into it and just say welcome to the FoodSense webinar for the 26th of September 2023. I have a couple of colleagues online with me, and you'll meet one of them shortly. I'm going to be quick and speak quick because we want to be efficient with your time. And if you didn't able to attend, don't worry, it's all recorded. It'll be on YouTube, and I'll also send anyone who's registered a link to this anyway. So everyone gets personal online training with FoodSense. So if you have signed up to FoodSense and you haven't had your personal online training, please let us know. If you're considering FoodSense and you become a client, don't worry, you have personalized online training. And we also have weekly webinars as well. And so some of the slides that I will use today actually reflect those weekly webinars. So every Wednesday at 8 a.m. London time, we do a weekly webinar where we answer questions from people who are FoodSense users, and really kind of happy with the feedback that we actually get. So often it's just, giving a little bit of advice, let's say. So I go forward and just say, today's the 26th of September. We'll do a live demo in a minute. If you're joining us late this morning, have no issues. We haven't said too much, so people will drop in as we go along. And as I say, anyone who's missed this, I'll send you a recording anyway. So we did have, we're having our live demo in a minute, but just to say as well that we'll also do this on the 26th of October as well. So it's probably worth just noting that commitment to doing once a month demos and webinars we stick to. And as I say, there is a weekly webinar as well if you've got any questions. Just a quick introduction to ZP. I will be very quick. We're in our 9th year. We are ISO 13485, so we're highly qualified to do this kind of work. We have large facilities, small facilities, primarily in Norway and in the UK. We have a large international team, and as I say, our facilities are state of the art, and we have at least 4 buildings within this small group. Today we're going to focus on FoodSense. So if you're a client, you've already got this. If you're thinking about becoming a client, this is what's going to arrive with you. And I will give a few slides just to kind of say, look, where did this technology come from? It originally came from Richard Compton, Professor Richard Compton at the University of Oxford. Richard published a paper, it feels like a decade ago now, so quite a while back, looking at capsaicin and using a electrochemical technique called cyclovoltammetry. So in the end, when you look at Zimmer and Peacock, we are ISO 13485, and we do a lot of contract development and a lot of contract manufacturing of electrochemical biosensors for medical health. When you look at the FoodSense product, you realize that actually this is a technology stack that we've otherwise used in medical health, but we're bringing it over to doing food quality. And even though we're going to focus today on chili sensing, please contact us if you want us to do live streaming demos on ginger as well. So we do ginger as well. If you're trying to do the measurement of the quality of chilies or chili products, and you're trying that, when I say quality, I'm thinking about the kind of hotness of that. You've got HPLC, high pressure liquid chromatography. I think it's infrequently used because it's actually just too expensive often for the food industry. To own this equipment, you're looking at a capital expenditure of at least $50,000 US, and then you've got the operational expenditure on top of that. It's easy to see that the operational expenditure on this would be about 5,000 per year. And then you have to actually have, no, you have to have more than that because you have to have the salary of the person to run the machine. People, if they want to measure the hotness, they could do panel testing. If they want to measure the hotness of products, they do a lot of guessing. And then you've also got the FoodSense. It's the HPLC and the FoodSense that are objective. Subjective is if you taste something, either by panel or as an individual, and you score it, that's a subjective test. You are the subject and you are testing it. But whether you have a blocked nose on the day or not could really affect the way you score it. Whereas objectively, we are measuring the amount of capsaicin in a product. That's either by HPLC or by FoodSense, but FoodSense is much faster and much lower cost to do. I said that we are ISO 13485, so that's a really high quality standard that we adhere to at ZP. And it's one that you normally would find with companies that are doing things like blood tests for diabetics. But when you look at this product, you realize there's a, how can I put it, a little unit here, sensors, and then we have an app. But when you look at that technology, it actually is very akin to a glucose strip. And so you can see that ZP, even though we're talking about food quality today, often we're actually looking at things like glucose in blood. Now, we say that there's two objective ways of measuring capsaicin in a product. There's HPLC and there's FoodSense, but of course we want to make sure that we correlate with HPLC. So we've obviously, it's not obvious, but we actually own an HPLC system ourselves. We have a Waters HPLC system, and we're obviously also the developers of the FoodSense. Now it's worth saying that obviously Richard Compton at Oxford was the inventor. Oxford University are the patent holders, so this is the patented technology, and we are the licensees of this. And work that we've done to extend the work at Oxford is actually to make sure that it all correlates well with HPLC. So if you could test a sample HPLC and you test a sample on FoodSense, then you get a sort of linear correlation that hot on HPLC is also hot on the FoodSense. I mean, that's important. But it's also nice as well. There's a nice guy called Charlie Rower at the University of Minnesota, obviously in the USA. Now, Charlie is, I think I would describe him as a food scientist, but he bought a FoodSense off us. He bought one of the early generation FoodSenses, and he tested it against HPLC. I wasn't aware of this at the time, but I was delighted because he did do this, and he correlated it with HPLC actually, and gave and wrote an independent paper. So not funded by us, not sponsored by us. We only saw the paper after he'd actually done it, but he was really happy with it. And the reason he was happy with it is because he knows that growers of chilies don't send their samples out for HPLC. They know because it's too expensive. It takes too long. I mean, you're talking about probably a 3-week turnaround. And also, it's not even accurate when that happens. I'll talk about accuracy in a minute anyway. But what he liked was he was able to test a sample, and he was taking chili peppers, he was blending them, he was putting them in the buffer, and then he was testing that. So he came up with his own little protocol. When he did that, he did it in triplicate on FoodSense. So he got like a sense of our precision, which he was happy with. And he couldn't do the same experiment in triplicate on HPLC because it was too expensive. So he both liked the ease of use, the speed of use, and the low cost of testing. And with HPLC, he could only send one sample out, and it was too expensive to do more than that because it can cost like $100 to do HPLC testing. So most of the time, people are not doing it at all. But I think the world is changing, and actually, people are expecting a lot more test in every industry, including the food quality industry. And if you want to have a premier or premium product, then you need to be testing. One of the things we face quite a lot is that people, they consider HPLC to be some sort of high standard, but it's not actually the high standard that they think it is. If you take a chili powder and you send it out for test in a laboratory, then you will get a certificate of analysis. If you send the same sample to a different lab, I've called it lab 2 here, you'll get a certificate of analysis. If you send the same sample to a third laboratory, you'll get a certificate of analysis. But what you're going to find out is that all 3 labs give you 3 different results. They will just not give you the same result. So this means that when you have a certificate of analysis on your probably your chili powder, your chili, you will see that, but what you won't see them is report any error, because they're only giving you an absolute number. They're not telling you what the error associated with that reading is. And so 3 labs testing the same sample will give you 3 results. It's very important to say that, because we do get people a lot saying, oh, well, I've got this certificate of analysis, you've got to meet this result. The question is, have you ever seen the raw data from that HPLC lab? It's called a chromatogram. You need to really understand if it was accurate or not. You need to see the chromatogram and the calibration line. And I tell you, you've probably not seen either of them. It's also the same. If you took the same, let's say, chili powder and sent it to the same lab 1 month, you'd get a certificate of analysis. If you sent the same sample to the same lab with a different name, let's say, on the 2nd month, you would get another certificate of analysis. If you send the same sample to the same lab on a 3rd month with a different name, you get a 3rd certificate of analysis. So same sample, same lab, but separated in time. And what you're going to find out is they all give you a different result. So be extremely careful. Even though you could pay a lot of money for an HPLC result, if you really did, if you validated that lab by sending them the same sample on multiple different occasions, you're going to get different results every time. So be careful with the thinking that this is a really good method. So we work with a billion-dollar company that grows a lot of chilies, and they've done this kind of research, and they absolutely know that same sample, same lab, they get different results on different occasions. Same sample, different labs, they'll definitely get different results on different occasions. So be careful with those certificates of analysis that you would otherwise get from HPLC labs. Something that you're going to see my colleague Sol run in a bit do is when we're running this, you'll see that generally Solrun does sort of 2 demos today. I'm talking fast because I want to be efficient with your time, and don't worry, it's recorded. I'll send you a recording anyway. But you'll see that when Solrun does a mild sample, we take a small amount of buffer and we add the sample into that buffer, and we call that like a dilution of 1 in 10. Now, if we think the product is hotter, Solrun might do a chili or a sauce or some powder. You'll see that in fact she increases the solubility, the solution to something like 1 in 100. And that's because capsaicin has a fundamental solubility limit of about 480 Scoville heat units. So let me say this a little bit. So even though people report sources of 5,000, 50,000, 100,000, we even had a powder the other day that was 800,000 Scoville heat units. Even though people have these types of products, the reason you can get to that kind of temperature in a let's say a chili sauce is because of the oils and the fats. Capsaicin is fundamentally very insoluble. In other words, it doesn't dissolve well in solutions or water solutions, and in fact only at 480 Scoville heat units. But it's the oils and the fats that then help to solubilize capsaicin. So the reason that you will see us use 1 in 10 dilution or 1 in 100 dilution is because we fundamentally know that capsaicin is not terribly soluble. So if it's very hot, we use 1 in 100, and if it's mild, we use 1 in 10, for example. This is just a small matter, but I said it, but every week we do a Q&A session. It's a much smaller, much lighter webinar than this one. Today is quite an intense webinar. I did a quick introduction. I told you the technology is patented and it's from the University of Oxford, and we are the exclusive license holders of it. I told you about HPLC. It's a fine method, but be very careful with the certificates of analysis. And then I also mentioned that this is part of our customer support. And also we do a weekly webinar at 8 a.m. London time on Wednesdays. And this is one of the, this is a slide from a recent webinar where somebody had actually tested 15 samples on the HPLC, and they'd also tested them on the FoodSense. I absolutely don't expect you to get the difference between these. I kind of call it percentage error here, but I really should call it difference, because which one's accurate is a matter of debate. But it was really interesting because when we actually checked the difference, the sum of this, minus 5%, 4%, minus 3%, 3%. When I added all those up and averaged it, the error is actually 0%. That's exceptional, but it wasn't our data. It was actually the customer's data. So it says a lot about the quality which they also do their work as well. I can say here I've got a demo, but I think this demo here is just to make a comment that we are today going to talk about chili, and you'll get 2 demonstrations of it. So I will be quiet in a minute. But I just wanted to highlight that actually there are some, let's say, ginger. At least there's one ginger video out there on YouTube, and it's also on our website. So the technology is also capable of measuring this pungency of ginger. There's a molecule called ginger called gingerol. And this is the guy that kind of gives you that ginger pungency. I suppose it's nice to know that ZP, in order to make and support products like this, you need some understanding of food science. You need some understanding of chemistry. You need some understanding of sensors. You need some understanding of engineering, and you also need some understanding of statistics. And I think at ZP we're unique that we actually have all of these disciplines within us. So what I will do then is just remind you that if you've got colleagues and you want the colleagues to get a live webinar, we'll do this again on the 26th of October. But in the meantime now, I'm going to turn off my screen, and my colleague Solron will turn on hers, introduce herself. She hasn't, there she goes, and I will mute, turn off my camera. Solron will speak, and then I'll just do a quick summary at the end there. Thank you, Solron.
Okay, hi, my name is Solron, as Martin said, and I will run you through a quick demonstration of how to use our FoodSense for testing the capsaicin in your FoodSense sample. So what we will be using is the FoodSense box, which is fairly small. You can see that it fits inside the palm of my hand. First off, I want to start by testing Tabasco, just because it's a fairly mild sauce and homogeneous and easy to test. So what I will do is I will add some Tabasco into a weighing chip, just so that it's easier for me to pipette. So I'll just pour some into a weighing chip like this. You can see here. And then I will prepare a vial. And we are using our CP chili pot buffer. It works as an electrolyte and it's important for our system, but also it makes it consistent from sample to sample. So you have the same environment for all of your samples, and in that we do miss a lot of the variables that you normally would get if you test the raw samples themselves. So as I said, Tabasco is a fairly mild sauce. So what we will do is we'll test it in a mixture ratio of 1 to 10. I'll show you the iPhone screen real quick. Can you see all the screen? Yeah, I take
yeah,
that
I'm sorry to be quiet, but yes, the quick answer is I can see all the screen is great.
Okay, I take that as, yeah, good, perfect. So the mixture ratio is 1 to 10 for a mild sauce like Tabasco. So what we will do then is we will add 10 parts of the chili pot buffer and 1 part of the Tabasco sauce. So I'll just pipette it real quick, like that. Yeah, it takes some time to prepare live, but then you see that I'm not cheating and we do get results right away. So now I will pipette 1 part of the Tabasco sauce. Just need to readjust pipette to say 100 microliters, just like that. And then I want to get as much sample as I can to get a representative sample. I'll add it into the vial. So here you see the buffer. I'll add it like that. And what you can see now is that the Tabasco is falling down to the bottom of the vial. So what I will do real quick is I will use a vortex just because it makes it easier for me to mix it real quick. I'll adjust the camera like that. So just do it for a few seconds. As I said, Tabasco is quite liquidous and it's a homogeneous sauce in itself, so it mixes fairly easy. So I'll show you. So here you go. And you see now that it's a homogeneous sample. You see some chunks and bits from the sample itself, but that's okay. The capsaicin is being extracted from the sample into the water-based phase, which is the chili pot buffer. So the next thing we will do is we will insert a sensor into the FoodSense box. So this is one of the chili sensors that we have, and we'll insert it into the FoodSense box. Okay, this. Okay, so insert it like that. Be sure not to hold to touch the electrodes of the sensor. The electrodes of the sensor is this part here. So you see the working electrode, the reference electrode, and the counter electrode. So we don't want to scratch it, so I make sure to hold it on the side. Just push it in real quick and a click, and then I will pipette 50 microliter of the sample I just prepared onto the sensor. 50 microliter is sufficient for covering all the electrodes. So I'll just pipette this and onto the sensor. Again, don't scratch the surface, but they are fairly robust, so they can handle it, but just so that you don't have any variables there. So now if I pipette it onto the sensor, I'll show you real quick what it looks like. So here you see the bubble is on top of the electrodes. So I'll put it back down, keep it horizontally, don't do as I just did. But then I will go to my app and I will click measure. So now it's running through those cyclic photomograms that Martin was showing you. And it's assessing the peak heights and the area below the peaks. And it's relating that to just how much capsaicin you got in your sample. So another thing which is important when you do the sample testing is that you do it consistently every time. Like you spend the same amount of time from adding the sample onto the sensor till you start the measurements, because capsaicin is very fond of the surface and it will gather at the surface of the electrodes. So pipette the sample onto the surface of the electrode and start the measurement just like we did now. And now the results came back to us, which is 3,600 Scoville heat units, which is in that region which Tabasco themselves claim that Tabasco is. They claim it to be between 2,500 and 5,000. So it's right in the region. So next up, I want us to test a more spicy sample. So these sensors are one-time use, again, because the capsaicin very much likes the surface of our electrodes. So in order for us not to increase the amount of capsaicin for every measurement, we do run them as single use. So again, I'll just insert a sensor into the FoodSense box just to prepare. But then next up is the sample preparation. And today I would like to show you a chili powder, just because it's a bit different than a sauce. And I have already cheated. So I have weighted out 0.1 grams of the chili powder. So I expect this chili powder to be a lot more spicy than the capsaicin, than the Tabasco. So what I will do, I will do a mixture ratio of 1:100, which I will show in the app now. So I'll type in 100, and then what I will do, I will add 10 milliliters of the chili pot buffer that we just added for Tabasco. So right, 10 milliliters. Goes like that, and I will show you up close what it looks like. So here, and then here is the powder, and then I will add the buffer. So this is what it looks like. So again, I will use the vortex just to mix it real well. And for Tabasco, which is already a homogeneous solution, it didn't require that much preparation time. But for some of these samples, like for instance, chunky salsas or powders like this one, or chili or chopped up chilies themselves, I would spend more time on the preparation just to allow that capsaicin to be extracted from the sample into the buffer. So preferably I would let this sample rest on the benchtop for maybe an hour before I will test it, because then it will be consistent from time to time, because it might just the capsaicin concentration in the buffer right now might increase tiny bit over the course of time. But when you let it rest for an hour, it reaches that well, not saturation point, but the point in which where it's extracted into the solution. So again, I will pipette 50 microliter onto the sensor. And as you can see here, it's still like the chunks and bits fall down to the bottom of the vial, which is okay because the capsaicin is in the water phase. So we'll just pipette from the middle of the vial. We don't pull in all those chunks and bits, but if some chunks and bits are in the solution that we were pipetting onto the sensor, that's totally okay. So 50 microliters onto the sensor. All right. Maybe this is a better view. Well, slightly, just like that. And then I will go to my app and I will click measure. So again, it is running through the cyclical tomograms, and for this sample in particular, we're expecting the peak heights in the area below the curves to be bigger than that for Tabasco. And if it is, it will come back as a higher SCO heat unit count. And it runs for a short minute as it goes through the data and analyzes it and converts it to a number that we can understand, and doesn't give you the raw data, which would require analysis. So it's coming back to us, and it comes back as 37,000, so 10,000, yeah, 10 times as strong as this Tabasco. So, all right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, really nice. I appreciate the reason we do these live demos is because you get a sense of the real workflow, let's say, in terms of the speed at which it works, or the way we prepare the samples, and I really like Solrun's done these. Obviously we've done these before, but we do get a very consistent result, which talks a lot about our precision. But because obviously we've done the HPLC backup as well, we also know what our sort of accuracy is, because we can independently check it against the chromatograms there. So what I want to do now then is basically sort of say, thank you for attending. Now it's probably worth saying that we do have if you've got colleagues and you want them to get that real, let's say, experience, as you have done today, we will do this again on the 26th of October. I have added it to the FoodSense blog, so hopefully there's enough kind of places. And as I say, if you are a client of ours and you are having sample prep questions, looking at certificates of analysis from HPLC, repeatability questions, essentially don't hesitate to reach out to us, because we do have a webinar, and the next one is tomorrow. And like I say, we like to answer questions from the week. So thanks to Solrun, thanks to Niti for organizing this. Thanks to you both for attending. Once this is finished processing, I will then add I'll send you a link to this, and so you can watch it, rewind it as much as you want. But as I say, any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Expect at least one live streaming demo a month, and also expect a weekly Q&A session where we do a webinar where we answer questions. Okay, thanks, Lauren, thanks, Niti, and thank you both for coming today. We appreciate it. Take care. Bye-bye.